We are live tonight talking about the Halloween updates. There are a ton of them over the last week. Um, I had the pleasure today of sitting down and reading the first 60-ish pages, close to 70 anyways, of the brand new book coming out. You Can't Kill the Boogeyman over PDF, thanks to the author and the publisher, which we will be having on very, very shortly. We're also talking the Harry Potter HBO show tonight. Randy and I are going to give dueling Superman reviews in 5 minutes or less. So, one way or another, one of the reviews should please you. Which one, I don't know. We're also going to be talking I Know What You Did Last Summer. Our source at the channel was at the Hollywood premiere. I believe it was last night. And he had some things to say about it. We have a new Halloween H2O NECA figure, a Halloween video game update, and more as we get ready to dive into this. And there's some wrestling talk too. I think we might have an all-in review on Patreon soon. That's not confirmed, but there are differentiating reports, conflicting reports, if you will, on if Seth Rollins is actually hurt or not from very reputable sources on each side. So who knows where that falls? And some Star Wars talk. Which Star Wars game are we likely to get, and which one are we not? All that and more right here on The Mask of Fear.
We all wear masks. Tonight, we wear the mask of fear. I am your host, Johnny, and it's truly a pleasure to be here with you wherever you are listening from on this fine Tuesday evening. If you happen to be listening to us watching live, if not, happy whenever, wherever you are watching. Joining me tonight, as always, of course, are my co-hosts, my colleagues, my friends. Randy, how you doing tonight?
Not doing too bad. Just trying to get through the week. Got some weekend plans that I can't wait to get to, but obviously we had a pretty exciting weekend of wrestling and movie releases, so can't wait to talk about that as well.
And of course, the other man on the panel, Shawn, how you doing tonight?
I'm burnt out. It's been 17 days of hell, followed by a couple of days of peace, minus 12 or 13 hours of catching up on YouTube work across two channels. So finally get to sit back and just talk, and other than clicking a couple buttons here or there, don't have to bust my ass off, and there's a bunch of cool things to get into tonight.
All right, guys, like Shawn said off the top, we got a lot of great stuff to go over tonight. But before we get started, let's kick things off with our first multiple choice question for you fans in the audience. And that is, did you like James Gunn's Superman? Yes or no? Or, I haven't seen it yet. Third option. That's my option because I haven't seen it yet. And before we get started down in the nitty gritty, we'd like to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors over at patreon.com/the Mask of Fear. Of course, you have Ryan at Kaulignation, where you can get all of your NASCAR needs available right here on YouTube. Jason and Backtrack Cinema, if you like retro horror, he is your guy. Check him out. And Jesse's Storytime Spectacular. We talked about all the pop culture fun stuff, just like we do around these parts. And of course, big thanks to all of our other patrons at one of the 5 tiers available over on patreon.com/the Mask of Fear, where you can check out the first 2 episodes of The Cult of Thorn. You can also check out the first episode of The Legacy of Halloween. And we also have 2 episodes of wrestling and 1 part Star Wars. All that and so much more available over at patreon.com/the Mask of Fear. All right, let's put on our favorite horror villain mask and get started with the first segment of the evening. Of course, I am referring to the horror segment. And before we get started with that, as always, we have your multiple choice question for this segment. Will you be going to see I Know What You Did Last Summer in theaters? Yes or no? Will you be going to see I Know What You Did Last Summer in theaters? Yes or no?
I would
guys,
like
it's time.
to, but logistically, it might not line up.
There are a great many things this summer. That one does not rank on my list, that's for sure. All right, guys, let's get down to our first topic of the evening. We're, of course, talking Halloween books. And we got a great one coming out very shortly. Of course, Sean mentioned it off the top. You Can't Kill the Boogeyman by Wayne. I'm assuming it's pronounced Byrne. That's my assumption.
That's a good question. I think I will find out when we vocally talk here in a couple of weeks' time. Let's pray I don't butcher it.
If we are saying it incorrectly, just let us know, and we will get that right. But just phonetically, I'm assuming that's Wayne Byrne. Sean, you've had a chance to start reading it. So what have we got? What do you think? What do you how are you feeling so far?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Wayne and the people at Bloomsbury Publishing. They're going to give me a physical copy of the book. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty on the channel, but this book was almost delayed for reasons that shouldn't have been, and it's not the publisher's fault or Wayne's fault. But it's still expected to hit an August 7th release date. And honestly, I like their new cover better than their old cover. I think they did a wonderful job with the silhouette and the in the doorway. From what I've read, I've enjoyed. I would say that if you're a Halloween fan who appreciates interviews with writers and directors and talent involved, and them spilling the beans on some things that they haven't done in previous forms of literature, then I think that you will like it. I don't think it's as extensive as, say, Taking Shape or Taking Shape 2, but it's still another wonderful piece of Halloween literature at a time where, for the last 6 to 10 months, all we've talked about is, oh, well, the series is in trouble, or, oh, well, the game's in trouble. And this is some positive news and some positive light on the franchise at a time where it's needed. I would say if you're a Halloween fan who likes reading, then this should be a must-buy for you.
If you want to check it out, Wayne also has a book out already on Nightmare on Elm Street. So if that's up your alley as well, you can look for that one as well.
Yeah, he's got a few good pieces out.
All right, let's move to our next topic. NECA has revealed its newest Halloween figure, and it is coming to us from H2O. It's an ultimate figure that includes a multitude of accessories, 3 swappable heads, 2 knives, 1 bloody and 1 stuck in a pumpkin, a fire axe, and for me as a Canadian, my favorite, a bloody hockey skate. Comes with 7 hands? 7. That's an odd number of hand. Why do you have an odd number of hand accessories? You'd think it'd be 4 independent pairs of hands, but that's just a
That's
weird thing I noticed when I looked at the
that's
picture.
that's one more hand than Johnny prefers.
No, I like 2 hands.
No, I meant 6.
No, that's too many hands. That's just too many hands. What do you guys think? Do you like the figure? Does it look good? Seeing the different heads, how do you feel about it? Is there something you wish it had that it doesn't have? Randy, we'll start with you.
I mean, one of the nice things is NECA always does a really good job with their figures in general. So I'm not surprised that we're finally getting this, considering they've done quite a few Michael Myers figures to begin with. I think it's cool that they're trying to give you as many different options and looks that you could possibly want or have. It is a bit odd to hear 7 hands, but they clearly there must be a reason for it, and I'm not gonna worry about it too much. But at some point I would like to actually start collecting these in general, but this would definitely be right up there. I also heard that NECA is also going to be revealing a Tom Savini Jason as well at this year, so that's going to be kind of cool. Just looks like we're getting a bunch of hits there just to start off the horror season early, which is great.
Shawn?
So I could be wrong on this, and to highlight one of the chat comments here, where is it? Dustin, our boy Dustin, also big time Patreon supporter of us. Don't forget to check our Patreon out for bonus content, as Johnny mentioned off the top. We're doing it all the time these days, so check that out over on patreon.com/The Mask of Fear. Dustin says, happy the NECA figure comes with the alien mask. So I believe that it comes with not just the I believe it's the Stan Winston mask. It also comes with the what I refer to as the alien mask. Other people call it the KNB mask. But I also believe you get the Halloween 6 mask with this as well, which is the first mask we see in that movie. Probably the one they should have stuck with, quite frankly. But I don't believe, to Justin's comment in the chat, that we are getting the bad CG mask. Probably a good call by them to leave that one out. My favorite accessory in this set is the hockey skate. We never actually get to see the hockey skate kill. We just come back in and see Joseph Gordon-Levitt in his youth stabbed through the face with a hockey skate. And, it's quite gruesome. So I do like that this cool little NECA figure, we get it. I do find, I've seen a couple of, because we put out a standalone video. This thumbnail here is from a standalone video that launched about an hour and 15 minutes ago, where we talk about some stuff that, like, we just briefly touched on the book here. I much more extensively touched on the book in that video, so go check that out after this live stream's over. But I briefly mentioned the NECA figure. I appreciate the amount of accessories that are coming with this. I personally, if I get it, I wouldn't open it. But I think it's good for what it is. But there's a couple of shots. We only have 3 posted on screen. I think they released like 20 that look a little weird. It looks like Michael Myers might have went on the Otis from WWE diet in a couple of them, and I don't remember. Not to body shame anyone, because I'm no slim pickings, slim dude myself. But Michael Myers is not a big dude in Halloween H2O, like at all. Christopher Duran wasn't a big dude, so other than the shape, pun intended, I really like the options that this figure provides, and I'm not someone who bends over backwards for NECA figures, because everybody jumps on them right away and they feel like they need to get them the second that they come out. And the truth is, it's really easy to go and find a lot of those figures now, even here in Canada.
Mhm.
and they're not marked up very much at all. So if I get this, it probably won't be right away. But I do have to admit, in the last calendar year or so, I actually just did my Halloween ranking with my oldest son, who has now seen all the movies but one. Um, and Halloween H2O is climbing my rankings. I still think the score sucks, but the fact that this is a Halloween H2O figure makes me kind of want to get it. I never thought I'd say that. If you went back and listened to me on Fandom Empire half a decade ago, you weren't hearing me say many positive things about Halloween H2O.
No, you definitely were not. If you ever Bloody Disgusting, they have a full spread out of images, including all three different masks, which are each independently different masks. So you are right about that. I'm not the greatest on which mask is which, but it is three different masks. Um, Also appears to have side to like angular neck articulation, which I think is pretty amazing for a Michael Myers figure. So you can get the head tilt while it's sitting on your shelf. Unless that's just a photo thing. I don't know if it actually does or not, but one of the photos does have, the head tilt, which I think is a really cool thing. All right, guys, let's move on to the next topic. It is a frequent topic here around these parts, and that's because we all happen to be gamers in our spare time, and Halloween happens to be a franchise we all enjoy. Dr. Loomis in a Halloween game. What say you, Sean?
So I need to stress that this, again, is one of those things that was valid for when Boss Team Games was in charge of the game. I would have to imagine, unless someone's been dropped on their head over at Gunn and Elphonic, that this will stick. And that is, you can basically take to the bank that the Halloween game is, in fact, going to feature one Samuel Lewis.
Randy, what do you think about that?
So thinking about it, I feel like it's a good ad just because. Let's be honest, that dude, that character deserves so much respect, and the fact that we've never really gotten to see him in any other medium other than really movies, and obviously in books and whatnot. But to actually be able to see him playing while playing a video game. Now, that's not to say he's going to be similar to like a Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th, but you never know what they actually might do with him. As long as it's done well, voiced well, and actually serves a really good purpose in the game, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think the most likely way you'll see it for me anyway is outside of like a story type game. That it would be sort of exactly like Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th. Assuming this ends up the asymmetrical route, I don't think that's a character you're going to want multiple of on any given session, and B, I think it does need to be, not just a random, everybody fights to be Loomis type character. So I think you'll have to have it pretty much be Tommy in the first game, where you kind of, you know, get the luck of the draw type thing and then come back as him. But I think he's needed. I think he's necessary in whatever game you put out, especially if it's in, that time period, which logically this would be. You have to have him. You can't not have him. He's too important a character to have in there. I think it's more negative to have uh, not have Dr. Loomis than it would be to not have Laurie. That's my opinion. I think Loomis is more necessary for it. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Like we said, things are constantly changing, and obviously, with the changing in leadership, we'll just have to wait and see how this thing actually uh, breaks out. Um. All right. Either of you have anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. Other than I know we're about to move on from. Actually, the only other Halloween thing I wanted to add here was Halloween Portal has decided they're going to do something for the first time in forever. You know, that god awful website that Trancus and Compass put out that really has no good use to it and was supposed to be the next big thing. they're going to be doing some giveaways. I believe it's next week. I don't think it's next month. I think it's next week. So the fact that they're active might be something to look at. I'm not entirely sure, to be frank, but it's doing something, I guess. So be on the lookout for that. And if you want to turn the conversation back to Halloween, feel free to send in a super chat at any point, and we will go back there. Rhino, Halloween Portal is still a thing. Yeah, apparently. Yeah, that about sums up how effective that was.
Yeah, it's a. I don't know. It's a. We bought the URL because it was a Halloween name. I think that's what I think. Um, all right, let's move on to our next topic. You mentioned it off the top. One of our sources was able to see a pre-release version of "I Know What You Did Last Summer." What did they think, John?
Well, to be clear, they were at the Hollywood premiere, so they and I quote, "Strap yourselves in for this one. It is the best legacy horror film made yet by a substantial amount. It's better than Scream 5. It's better than Scream 6. It's better than the Hellraiser movie. It's better than the Chucky series. And it's much better than even Halloween 2018. Now, he is worried about, what the financial success will be of this film because it's not as big as a lot of those other films mentioned. Um, but he said that he loved the film. He thinks it's going to be a little bit divisive towards the end, and that there's a jaw-dropping, shocking ending. Definitely sets you up for more films in the future if it succeeds financially. We spoke about this one in the past that from stuff that we read, that Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. are very good in the film. But he also gave a lot of praise to, I wish I could remember the specific actors and actresses he pointed out, but he said the new cast isn't just a bunch of, losers and unlikable characters, but rather people that you can gravitate towards. And he thoroughly liked the film. He said the film had excellent sound design and cinematography. It has me thoroughly excited for this movie. I Know What You Did Last Summer, the first film, was a staple for me growing up. I didn't really care for the second film, if I'm being honest. The third film was obviously straight to home video garbage that featured no one from the first films. But yeah, it apparently was very, very good. And for me, I live in the middle of nowhere. For us to get to a good movie theater, we're traveling 90 minutes, so it's hard in order to get the kids watch to go see it. But I would like to. But I would stress to people, if you're on the fence, if you're already considering going and seeing this thing, is that at least according to our guy, it's really, really good. I checked out a few reviews before we went live, and they seem to line up, maybe not quite as positive as him, but pretty close to it.
All right, Randy, what do you think? How does that hearing that? How do you feel about this movie now compared to a bit ago?
I mean, at some point, I'm going to see it. I mean, I think um, that's going to happen. It's good to know that it's very well done. It's good to know that they showed a lot of respect to the series and are really trying to just tell a good story, because that's when it comes to horror in any shape or form. Sometimes it's not just about the scares, it's not about the killing, it's about the story. And it's good to know that we're going to get something that is going to be very pleasing to the fans, and that we're going to have a nice little crazy bit of an ending. That's always good in any horror film. So yeah, like I said, it's not up there on my list of seeing right away, but I definitely will make sure I get to see it after hearing that
It
review.
definitely improves my interest in it. That's for sure. Your biggest fear is that it's just like vintage nostalgia, you just eat member berries and watch the movie. But if it's not that, if it's actually good on its own merits, that makes me a lot more excited for this than I was a bit ago. And hearing good things about the new cast, that's always the worry, right? When you don't know the new members of a cast like this, you get concerned because you don't know what you're going to get performance wise or ability wise. So hearing good things, hearing compliments, hearing flowers and glowing thoughts from our people, I'm excited. I'm more excited for this than I was even 20 minutes ago, which is a hugely exciting thing. All right, before we move on to the next topic, we had a couple super chats come in during the course of that. Jerry sending in a couple here in the last few minutes. His first one, a $5 super chat. You can't kill the boogeyman sounds like a downgraded retread of the Taking Shape books. I obviously haven't read it yet, but just based on synopsis and things like that, I feel like Taking Shape was more about what we didn't get, where this is more about what we did get.
Yeah, it's nothing like the second Taking Shape book. And keep in mind, I'm only about 60 pages into it. I am not quite even quarter way through this thing yet. Again, big thank you to Wayne and the wonderful people over at Bloomsbury Publishing for providing me with an early copy of this. Um, and I love Jerry. Jerry's an awesome contributor to our channel. But I don't think it's fair to label it like that. I think that it is worth the money to go out and get this book. Um, it's very much in the vein of what we did get, but also there's some stuff in there. Excuse me. That plays out more like rather than people who would have been involved in a movie that didn't happen, you get some ideas from the people who were involved and things they would have liked to do or tried to do but didn't end up doing. So it is a bit of a different perspective. And I will say this, even though I'm only 60 pages into it, I know this just from going back and forth with Wayne a bit. The subtitle there, the ongoing Halloween saga, 13 movies and counting. The end counting part, you're going to want to pay attention to because we are going to talk about that on this channel with Wayne. And I hope I don't get in trouble for even saying that much. But that alone is not just like a tagline. There's something to it. And Jerry's other super chats right here.
Jerry sent a second $5 super chat. Sean's new fan film, I Know What You Did Last Canada Day. I'm going to take a wild stab and guess that would involve a lot of corralling children and watching fireworks.
So every Canada Day.
Well, at least for the last 18 years.
Yeah. Stay tuned on the fan film front is all I'll say. I'm not saying anything's imminent, but as you know, we never did get to release ours. We have a bunch of footage. I would like to just flat out release some of it, not as a constructed film, but certain scenes. But there's been some brief talks about doing something that wouldn't be crowdfunded in a way to make up for what we weren't or have not at least been able to deliver yet. And I don't want to say more than that until we know for sure what's going on, but stay tuned.
All right, it's time to take off your horror masks and time to put on your wizard cap this week. And start you and get into the movie, TV, general fandom segments. And of course, we're going to start you off with, as always, your multiple choice question. This one's a little more wide ranging. So, on a scale of 1 to 5, how excited are you for the upcoming Harry Potter series? On a scale of 1 to 5, how excited are you for the upcoming Harry Potter series? Me, I'm a 5. Big time 5. Huge 5.
I was a 3 until this morning. And then I started to see some of the photos.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, well, geez, these guys are taking a lot of care in this. And then I heard from someone how extensive the sets are on this project, and they apparently put the movies to shame, which shouldn't be shocking because it's HBO. But like they compared it to the level of intricacy that's used with House of the Dragon and their sets. And immediately I was like, okay, so like you really are trying to immerse people in this world. And I didn't think the Harry Potter movie had bad sets at all. But when you go back to some of the earlier movies, they're a little outdated now. Um, but like between that and clearly the level of care that they're putting into it, I'm excited to talk about this. And you know, if it was like a CW series, I don't think I'd be as excited. But it's HBO, and I've never read the books. I've only watched the movies. Jade's read the books. My oldest son's read the books. So there's a lot of material I've never got to experience or see.
Entire
And to
characters
know,
you've never heard
yeah,
of.
to know. By the way, they just cast. Oh, what the fuck's his name? The dude from Qyburn from Game of Thrones, Pentagrass from Andor. He just got cast in the show too. So they just keep adding talent.
All right. Well, I pulled that up since we're coming back to that later. Oh God, where did my notes go? Where did there they are. Okay. All right, let's get down to the first sort of topic of the evening. Shawn, you teed it up in the opening segment. You and Randy both had the opportunity to see James Gunn's Superman this past weekend on opening weekend. So, as you said, in 5 minutes or left, you said you guys have dueling reviews of different takes in the air. So I'm not going to ask you whose is whose. I actually kind of want to be surprised on this one. So I'm going to flip a proverbial coin in the air, and when it lands, I'm going to say positive or negative, because I assume that's the two sides of the coin you guys are on. I don't know whose is whose. I have my ideas of whose is whose, but I don't want to know for sure. So I'm going to flip the coin. I'm going to say positive or negative. Whichever one of you happens to have that particular take gets to go first. Okay? Flipping the coin in the air. Negative. You're first.
So I went and seen this thing on the weekend. And I think to properly, and I had originally recorded my own review for this, but there was a connection issue. And I unfortunately, like I listened back to the audio, and to me, it was not fair to put out a video with that kind of audio issues. But are you all right? You gonna live there? You're muted.
I am. I pulled up the casting.
Oh, okay. I don't know who he's playing. I just know he got cast. So, never a bad thing to add talent. Sorry. Anyways, let me preface this by saying this. I am a huge Smallville fan. Huge. I'm currently rewatching the series again. I'm very much debating whether I might do some little Smallville rewatch thing on Patreon. It's unfair to compare Smallville, or rather any Superman movie, or even Superman trilogy, to Smallville. That's 10 seasons and 200 plus episodes of character development and story. It's the best Lex Luthor we've ever gotten, the best Clark Kent we've ever gotten. It is not a Superman show. He becomes Superman in the last episode. Spoiler alert. Some people might say he's more or less Superman for the last couple of seasons, but it's hard though, right? Because I have a lot of love for that show. I also do not appreciate people when they lie through their teeth for marketing of a movie. It would be hypocritical for me to come on here and give James Gunn a pass when we didn't give Blumhouse or David Gordon Green a pass for our coverage of Halloween Ends. Because we didn't. We made them lambs to the slaughter when they went out there, mismarketed their movie, misrepresented their movie, and ended up being something else. And I'm sorry, but James Gunn went out there and said, this isn't Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not that tone. It's not like that at all. And sir, you are a fucking liar. Okay? All this is some pathetic, poor attempt. Hang on, let me preface this by saying, if you like the movie, that's okay. Randy likes the movie. That's okay. I talked to Zach Arnold. I don't know if he likes it as much as Randy, but that's okay. I hope that if you spent your hard-earned money on this thing, that you like the movie. But I'm entitled to my opinion, and my opinion is this is a poorly written Temu version of Guardians of the Galaxy with a Superman skin on it. A movie with very little stakes that completely disregards the Superman origin story. Like, here's a spoiler alert. This is a spoiler, people. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to spoil the whole movie. But the Kents are fucking alive. Both of them, and he's Superman. And they're just fine and fucking dandy. I'm sorry. Where's the driving force to become Superman? And the movie literally starts off with 300 years ago this, 30 years ago this, 3 years ago this, 3 hours ago this, and boom, you get that dog scene from the trailer. That's the start of the movie. Here's a fact. I seen the movie, my 5-year-old seen the movie, and my 17-year-old seen the movie, and well, those guys didn't like it or didn't hate it as much as I did. They didn't really like it either. So you covered all the demographics and nobody liked it. That being said, it seems to be a divisive film online. Now, I see some people misrepresenting its box office numbers as if it's doing this amazingly great job, and it's not. They're going to be lucky to break even. That's just a fact, unless they have a really impressive second and third weekend. I'll give the film this. I know Randy's supposed to be the positive one. Lex is good in the film. Nicholas Hoult is good. I don't remember the actress's name that plays Lois. She's good in the film. There's a interview that happens in the first half of the movie between two substantial characters, or I guess in a way, three substantial characters. And the way that interview plays out, that's actually really good. It's not like the whole movie's bad. I didn't give it a 0 or a 1 or a 2. It's just not very good. It's not what we were promised. It is basically, in my opinion, what I stated it was, a Temu version of Guardians of the Galaxy with a Superman skin. Very bad CG. David Cornsweet's okay as Superman. I would, say he's great. And honestly, I've seen people say, yeah, the DCU has arrived. And I've been saying, yeah, the DCU is dead on arrival already. And make no mistake, they can talk 10-year plan this, 10-year plan that. If this movie loses money, which it has a shot at doing, and the next couple movies lose a substantial amount of money, you won't have a 10-year plan. That will be it again if you've paid any attention to what happens over at Warner Brothers the last several years. You need to make money or they will axe your ass despite what comes out of their mouths. And I'm not a Zack Snyder fan, by the way. People are going to be like, oh, this is a Snyder fanboy with his panties in a knot or some bullshit like that. I thought Man of Steel was okay. I thought Batman versus Superman was okay. I didn't think either one was particularly good. And I don't think this one's good, but I would take both of those movies over this thing. I just didn't like it in any way. I thought the marketing behind the movie was a big fat lie, and I was disappointed. And I went in with low expectations and still came out going, holy crap, the new Captain America movie, which, by the way, you guys know, because I said this in our staff chat, I did not like at all. And that movie is miles better than this movie. The writing in this movie makes George Lucas's Phantom Menace look like an Oscar-worthy written movie. This is an actual line from the movie, from Superman to his robots. Hey, Superman robots, why did you do this? Fill in the blank. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, James Gunn has the ability to do different shit. Go look at James Gunn's filmography away from comic book movies. If you think it's all comedy, you're wrong. It's not. He's quite good at what he does. But when it comes to comic book movies, people, he's a one-trick pony, and I'm tired of his shtick. So he can keep his Superman, he can keep his DCU, because I'm already out. But I hope all of you, if you're invested, enjoy it.
Yikes. Um, I'm kind of glad we got the negative first. So, Randy, you can try and give a positive outlook after that.
Oh, that is that what I was going to hear in that video? Good Lord. Anyway, for me,
The video was much worse.
oh wow, that's the toned down version. Holy shit. So for me, I grew up on Christopher Reeve as Superman. I'm that old, and he was always my Superman. I enjoyed the different adaptations through the years. I enjoyed Henry Cavill and Tyler Hoechlin for the CW Arrowverse, and I always figured at least give him a chance because the different iterations that have come along through the years, I've enjoyed. With this, the movie, does try to give you that, feeling of Guardians of the Galaxy at times. But here's the thing that I've came to realize while really thinking about this is that this movie wasn't made for me. This is made for people like my wife who loved Guardians of the Galaxy, loves that tone. And that's one of the reasons, and I think that's one of the reasons why she really enjoyed the movie as much as she did, is because it had that similar feeling that she really enjoyed from the MCU. And I will say that it's a shame that a lot of the marketing wasn't as advertised, but for the most part there's some good laughs. There's some of the action pieces are fairly decent. It's not all actiony, unfortunately. I would have loved that a little bit more, but there's some really good chemistry at times between some of the actors. Crypto stole some of the scenes of the movie, and in a lot of cases, I mean, I enjoyed Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. I loved the attitude, but again, like Shawn said, there is that kind of that Guardians of the Galaxy feel to it in that respect because you have all those character personalities, and I didn't think it did a disservice to the movie, and I wasn't against them not having an origin story. I was fine with them having everybody being established. Even though from what I understand, it's only Clark's third year being Superman is when they're going into the film, which is what so. But like Shawn, Nicholas Hoult was absolutely amazing as Lex. Not as good as Michael Rosenbaum's, but still but Nicholas Hoult did go on record saying that that was one of the driving forces behind his interpretation of Lex, was studying up on what Michael Rosenbaum did and also a couple of different comics that he read. So you got some good bones there for that character. Ultimately, going in, it's a fun movie. There's some really good messages in it, some really good positive ones in there that and some heart in some places, but it's not anything that's trailblazing. It's not anything brand new. I think what James Gunn tried to do was take Superman back to the good old Boy Scout that we got in the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really feel like that it was a valiant effort, even though it's probably not going to do well internationally, unfortunately, because of what the rest of the world thinks of the U.S. They're probably not going to do a lot of enjoying some of the films that we got coming out here that really rely on that market to really make the money for a lot of these films. I guess we'll see what happens with Fantastic Four when that comes out later this month. I'm sure Jurassic World will do just fine because it usually does mega bucks overseas. But for Superman, it's a shame that that it might not make money back, might barely break even if we're lucky. Because I feel like going to see it in the theater, seeing it being in a packed theater on top of that, it felt like people have been waiting for a Superman movie to come out for a long time. And I didn't hear anything bad from anybody around me. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. So if you're just down for just something that's kind of wholesome and not too mind numbing, go out and see it and have a good time, because I think it's definitely worth seeing at least once in theaters.
Wow, there you go. Two differing opinions. You've heard both positive and negative. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm gonna be honest. I was probably never gonna see it in theaters because, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me three times, I don't even know what that one is. And the DC universe has fooled me twice, at least. So, yeah, no, just no. But if you did go out there and watch it, enjoy it, I'm happy for you. If you went out there and didn't enjoy it, well, I'm sorry you gave them another chance to burn you. All right, let's move on to our next topic, and that is we have more. This is a story that's been sort of developing for the last few months. It goes back, as I've said, it goes back to May roughly, when Jeff Schneider on a podcast brought it up, and it's now coming up again, sort of making second rounds in the last few weeks. We had the confirmation of Punisher, but now it is shaping up that he is coming in to help with a threat, which is kind of what we assumed, and that threat is Savage Hulk. Now, if you don't know your comics and you hear Savage Hulk and you think, oh, is that a different version? Is it like Red Hulk or Abomination or something like? Is it a different thing? No, this is Bruce. Bruce is Savage Hulk, but he is more similar to the Hulk you saw in Ragnarok, where he wouldn't bring out Bruce. We wouldn't let Bruce come out, but in a more angry way. Like he sort of lost his moral compass in a way. He's angry and destructive, and this is Hulk at his most leave me alone. I want to be left alone type thing. So it's interesting to see how we get there, which unfortunately we're probably not going to get. Which is something I don't want. I don't want to just all of a sudden have Hulk be the villain. Like, how? Why? What happened? Why is Hulk off his rocker? What's going on? I'd like that answer before we get to
You
this.
saw
But
Superman.
I don't think that would make him angry. I think that would just make him laugh. And Hulk would be like, I could take him. But I mean, I don't know. I want to see what turns him savage. Hopefully that would be a part of the story. But what do you think? I mean, for one thing, is the Punisher really the guy you'd call to take on Savage Hulk? I mean, of all the
I was thinking
possible
the same
team
thing.
ups, of all
I
the
love the
possible
Punisher.
team ups that are out there for the Punisher, like you call him for the Hulk?
Hey, he's my favorite comic book character, but I literally looked at that as like, oh, so this is like Zach Gowen versus Braun Breaker. Okay, got it. Cool. That's gonna go real well. Uh, um, it sounds like, and the interesting thing is, I still believe there's two other villains in this movie. But it sounds like there's a lot of weight behind the Savage Hulk thing, and until you said it, I didn't. If it wasn't for the rumors of Ruffalo being in it, I would not have known it was the same Hulk. I just would have thought it was another variant. But I'm intrigued. I just don't see what Frank can do against the Hulk.
Punisher was perfect as sort of a collaboration for one of the street level guys. Like we talked about at different points. Scorpion or Shocker or Electro. Someone in that Tombstone was the one we really talked about a lot as would make the most sense for Frank to be involved with. Randy, what do you think about calling in the Punisher to take on a Savage Hulk?
So let's put this into perspective. What makes you think that Spider-Man's going to call in any help? I think this is something where if Savage Hulk truly is, going to be an antagonist of sorts, I think it's going to have to. What's going to happen is he's going to do something, destroy something, where Frank feels the need to try to interject himself and try to take him down. I think that's would be more or less the idea behind it than Spider-Man going, "Oh, please help me, oh violent one." So, because Spidey's going to do anything he can to try to peacefully calm things down. But also, with the rumors of Mr. Negative, you never know. There could be something that he does that affects Bruce in a way that draws out Savage Hulk. We saw, Wanda do that in Age of Ultron. We saw him rampaging that way. Now, we don't know what he saw, but that felt like what Savage Hulk would probably be like, just doing a rampage through town until Tony eventually stopped him. But the idea here is clearly something happens in New York, and like I said, it feels like Frank's probably going to just interject himself more or less than he is actually going to be, "Hey, Spidey, want to team up?" Because we all know how well he teams up with people.
I mean, that's fair. I think that's a much more accurate. Just like, we're making the jokes about it. Like Spider-Man calling out, like you said, "Mr. Angry Violent Man, help me." It's not obviously going to be that, and I don't think it is either. I'm fairly certain that you are probably 100% accurate. If I had to lay betting money on it right now, that Savage Hulk does something that Frank takes offense to and decides, well, you know what, there's a problem. I know how to fix problems. I kill them, and that's what he tries to do. That does make perfect sense to me. It's interesting. I mean, I guess the real question is, will this involve his son in any way? Because you now have a Hulk child running around, and I think that is a fairly easy way to make him go savage with how you've painted the Hulk right now. The last time we saw him, he's Joe Fixit. He's Professor Hulk. He is calm in the Hulk, and what better way to uncalm the Hulk than to kill essentially the only true family he has. And I think his son fits that. But I mean, yeah, he's got, his cousin, but I mean, you kill one of my cousins, I'm gonna be angry, but you kill my son and Savage Hulk. Absolutely. So that makes sense to me. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess. We're getting closer and closer to this, and we'll start seeing things and hearing things. And if there's one thing we've learned about Marvel Studios sets, is that they're like a sieve. They leak more than the Titanic after it hits the iceberg. So we'll have our answers fairly soon, I think, about what this is, and we'll be able to discuss them in more depth. All right, let's move on to our final topic here in the fandom section. Sean, you brought it up off the top there. We discussed it briefly. It was, of course, the multiple choice question. Today, the first looks in character have started coming out from the Harry Potter HBO series. As you can see here on screen, we have the first photos of Harry himself, and we have the first look at Nick Frost as Hagrid. On top of that, we did have more casting announced today. Roy Wilmot, who was going to play Neville Longbottom, Amos Kitson, Dudley Dursley, both young child actors, so assume fresh faces unknown. I don't know either of the names. Louise Brealey is going to play Madam Hooch, of course, the Quidditch referee and captain, teacher of How to Fly, and the one that caught your eye, Anton Lesser, Qyburn of Game of Thrones fame, has been cast, in my opinion, the absolute perfect role for him. He is set to play Garrick Ollivander of Ollivander Wands, which your lore is a fairly important character in the in the build up to the finale of it. So we'll see him in the first season, presumptively, assuming that's how it breaks down. One season per book is the presumptive assumption. We'll see him in the first book.
They actually announced that today.
They have confirmed that? Okay.
Yeah.
So then we'll see him in the first season, and I don't believe we'll see him again until the 6th season or 7th season. I can't remember exactly. I want to say the 6th is the next time we'd see him.
Well, be prepared for what they did with House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, that some stuff might change slightly from the books, but from what I understand, they're going to try to stay as true as possible. How old is Anton Lesser anyway, by the way? away. You always worry. You always worry about that when you're counting on someone to come back half a decade from now, and that is if they can turn it around every single year, which TV shows have a really hard time on doing.
73.
My point exactly.
Yeah. I think it's doable. I think you can. I think a lot of the Ollivander stuff is, for the most part, stuff that could be filmed earlier. Like, he's one of the characters that I don't think you have to be quite as stringent if you have your settings and locations for later seasons set and chosen. Then I think you might be able to film some of his stuff sooner than later, I think. But, we'll have to wait and see, because obviously some of it does include Harry himself, and you can't exactly film that until later. But you could, I don't want to say green screen it, but, that is entirely a possibility. But I digress. But like you said, there's your first looks. Like you said, they're taking a more, obviously it's HBO, they're taking a more Game of Thrones and establishing more locations, which I think makes a lot of sense, because like you said, like you said, Sean, your experience is exclusively with the movies. So you are very limited in scope as far as locations go.
Correct.
They were much more limited in scope in the movies. And you're pretty much limited to the potions classroom, the transfiguration classroom, the Gryffindor common room, the Great Hall, the Quidditch pitch. There were maybe 7 or 8 locations in the first film of consequence, whereas in the book there are vastly more than that. So it will be exciting to see more of those and see more of them. I hope they stick. Like, as crazy as it sounds, I do want them to sort of stick to like the film Castle. Like, I don't want to see a new Hogwarts Castle, because I felt like that one perfectly captured the look of Hogwarts, since it was an actual castle in, I want to say, Scotland, Ireland, somewhere in the United Kingdom, I believe. But it's going to be exciting. I'm excited for this. Like I said, this is a series that I am very much excited. I want to see all the characters. You give me all the characters and I'm happy. Give me Peeves the Poltergeist. Give me the Red Baron. Like, give me all of the characters you left out of the movie for, I can't even explain why. Like, I need to see the Headless Hunt. Like, that's another thing I need to see. Dustin in chat said Hogwarts Castle was in Scotland. So, like I thought. But I'm excited for this. What about you guys? What's your level of excitement heading towards this? How are you feeling about the cast? Are you happy? Are you concerned? Are you really hoping they do a lot of great editing tricks to make Nick Frost look larger than that photo? Because that photo makes him look tiny, and Hagrid is not a tiny man. Comparatively. How are you feeling? Sean, we'll let you go first, since you have less experience with the franchise.
I mean, hell, I didn't see my first movies for Harry Potter until a few years back. We sat down and binged them over the course of a couple days, and I liked some more than the others, but my general impression of the series was I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we've since gone back and watched it a second time. And look, I have all the faith in the world in HBO to do things properly. I just do. Like, I wish they did Star Wars. I wrote, like, for obvious reasons, the creator of Harry Potter, whose name is slipping my mind,
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, she's under fire for probably good reason a lot. But the way I also look at it is, hey, and I get it because she's the creator and obviously a producer on this. It makes some people never want to watch or touch Harry Potter again, and I get it. But if we were to have that level of standards for every single franchise and anyone involved in the upper echelon staff, I can guarantee you there's someone of that capacity in every franchise you know and love, and you'd never be watching anything again. I'm excited for this. I was about a 3 or a 3.5 out of 5. Now I'd say I'm a solid 5 out of 5. I'm someone who likes eye candy in my shows, set design, sound design, cinematography, good costumes. And it seems like this is going to have all of that I'm not too worried about Nick Frost because Nick Frost is a big dude. And I have cut that picture down a little bit too, by the way. I've trimmed the sides out. If he's a little smaller, so what? It's like because Snape's an African American in this, people are like, oh my God, how dare they? It's like, let the guy play the fucking role. You might end up loving him. You don't know. Obviously, he has big ass shoes to fill in Alan Rickman. That's not something I'd envy anybody doing because that's going to be damn hard to live up to. But I'm I'm excited for the show. I hope it meets its 2026 release date. But with their intent of doing 7 or 8 movies on this, or TV seasons on this, they desperately need to be willing to spend the money to make sure they can turn this over 1 year at a time. Because if they can't, and you fall into that trap that almost every other big series has lately, of you get 1 year, one show, or one season every 2 years, the characters are going to all age out of their roles, young and old.
At least in filming, I think. Like if you need to take that second year to edit, you cannot delay the filming. That's for sure.
Agreed.
Randy, what about you? You clearly are a bit more knowledgeable about the franchise because I saw the thumbs up when I mentioned Peeves and the Red Baron, which makes me happy.
Yeah, I was, kind of disappointed when I didn't read the books. I actually listened through them audiobooks, and but it was interesting because I watched the movies first, and then I went back to the books because what I didn't want to do is my friend read one of the books and went to the movie like right after, and it completely ruined his viewing experience because he's like, this was left out, and this was left out, and this was left out. So I took it upon myself to wait until I had seen all the movies. And I was pleasantly surprised. Yes, there's some stuff they left out. There's a lot of Hermione stuff they left out of the movies that are in the
Haggerty
books.
of Spew?
So I'm really curious to see how they play that off. Obviously, some of the things some people said, they made different characters say it instead of the original. So I'm really happy that we're going to get a nice extended look at the books essentially in the series. Once I saw Nick Frost looking like Hagrid, I was like, okay, I can breathe a little easier because, I mean, it's really hard to picture Hagrid than anybody else other than Robbie Coltrane. So that the fact that they got this good of a look for Nick Frost for this, I'm like, okay, the pictures look good. The cast looks great so far with what they've shown. They're really bringing in a lot of good people. So my excitement's right up there to the point of where it's just like, all right, I've seen enough right now that I can at least have some faith that we're going to get a nice faithful adaptation to the books, and that they're going to do the movies proud, maybe even do more than what the movies already have done. So I just can't wait to get to see at least some of the teasers to start now, because obviously, as we all know, the next big thing that we need to hear is some of the music they're going to use, because that's always been such a huge integral part of the movies, that the music has always been top notch to kind of help drive the story and the scenes.
If they don't use the John Williams score and soundtrack, I will be marching on HBO headquarters. Okay.
I
If I don't,
can almost guarantee you they might, like, they're not going to use his stuff, to be clear. That's not going to happen. Could they have someone repurpose that stuff and do remade versions of it? Yeah, but I will guarantee you right now, if you're just hoping they reuse what's in the movies, there's about a 0.1% chance that happens. For a bunch of logistical reasons.
I think you'll get the iconic pieces, the two of them, the main theme and Hedwig's theme. Those are the only two that I expect. I think.
I think you'll get them, but I think you'll get someone else doing them.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, as long as it's that those pieces, I don't really care which symphony is performing them or who's conducting them. It's the writing that's important. And
have they announced a composer yet?
Not that I'm aware of. Not in any way. I don't think they've done anything on that side of anything. I don't even think they've announced any directors or anything yet. So time will tell. We'll see. Um,
That's weird if they haven't announced directors, considering they're filming. So
I mean, it's not entire. Well, they have some. Um, Mark Mylod is directing some and executive producing. That's why I wasn't aware of his directing. So we'll see. We're gonna see. I do need them to green up Harry's eyes a little more. They're not quite green enough for me because that's the one thing like that the movies that the books made very clear. He had Lily's eyes. Lily's eyes are one of the few things that are described vividly and vibrant green. You need vibrant green eyes.
could be the photo.
Now, and that's it. Like I said, I was mentioning this to my brother earlier. They're like, I don't like the eyes. The eyes aren't right. And I'm like, but it's 2025. That is something you can fix in edit and in post production and during actual filming. Because, I don't want to be forcing a child actor to be wearing color correcting eye lenses 24/7. But
Yeah.
like, if you on camera he's wearing them, or if they're doing it in post, which I think is probably the more likely route in this era, then I don't mind. That's more of a I need to see in the finished product before I make a complaint about that, because in the costume he looks great. The scar is more book appropriate, just based on how it's more faded and what have you. And I love the look. I love it. It's great. Like I
Hey,
said,
Dustin.
Hagrid looks a little small, but again, that's just photography, right?
Dustin, I'm gonna need you
Dustin
to
try to stir the pot
subscribe.
over here.
Yeah. I'm gonna need you to subscribe to the VIP tier before you take any more fatal shots like that at me. That is trauma. I got Jamie Lee Curtis screaming trauma in my ear right now.
All right, let's move
Oh,
forward.
sorry. One more fun fact on how good Harry looks is when I first saw this photo the other day. I was on Twitter and I scrolled past it because I just thought, oh, okay, well that's what
Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe from One, and then I stopped. I'm like, wait a minute, did I see HBO on there? And I went back up, and well, it's not on like the on the picture itself. In the writing, it was. I was like, holy shit! And then this morning, I seen Nick Frost, and just like they could have easily went the other way and not have them look this damn close. Um, but I love the attention to detail, and I wouldn't worry too much about the eyes. I think that's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I'm not. Like I said, that's a future problem. Like right now, it's a concern because it's the first photo of him in costume. You'd think they'd sort of go to the nines for that one, but
let me ask you this for the books. I don't want you to give too much away, but
okay.
Sorry, Voldemort is in the first movie, but not very much. Is he in the first book, or was that something they just did for the movie?
You never see him in full in the first book.
No, he looks like in the movie. He even looks like Emperor Palpatine more than actually.
You see him like in the book. The only time you sort of see visuals of him is from like when he's still living. When you get the flashback to the beginning, it's kind of from behind, so you never you don't see his face. And then when you see the poltergeist, like the wraith, I guess is technically what it's called. It's just the eyes, nose, and mouth on the back of Quirrell's head. So you don't ever actually see, except in the book, I believe there's a scene in the Forbidden Forest where you see him eating the unicorn blood. But you don't actually see him because he's in wraith form.
Obviously the big scene where Harry's sorry, my dog's about to lose it on my cat. The big scene where Harry's parents die. We never really see that in full from start to finish. You see glimpses of it throughout the movies. This is HBO. I could totally see them kicking off the series with them showing that in full before we go to Harry being a kid. I think not specifically that moment, but I think they will take liberties at times to make sure you get stuff that is fresh for people who have only seen the movies. Because even like, I don't know how many episodes are in a season of this, somewhere between 8 to 10, I would assume. But even a book, an unabridged audiobook of this, I'm going to assume is somewhere in the 15, 20 hour range and not 10.
Oh,
So there's still not, yeah, so there's still going to be stuff that gets cut out. But, I'm curious to see what happens.
I'll say this: if Lily and James Potter are not 21 years old, we're gonna have a problem because the old people version in the movies is ridiculous. Okay, ridiculous. You can't have Lily and James be the same age as Sirius and is when he's in the movies. Like that just makes no fucking sense.
You could have them be 30 years old in the series playing a 21-year-old. That happens all
Oh
the time.
yeah, that's not what I mean. I mean the characters like themselves. They should not be middle aged like they were in the movies. Like they look like they were in their late 30s when we see them in the movie, and these characters are supposed to be 21 years old. Fresh out of Hogwarts, essentially. Like, they're 2 years removed from Hogwarts at this point. Like, why do they look like they're in their 30s? Why do they look like Sirius and why do they look like the professors? They shouldn't. They should look like the students. The older students, I mean. But I digress.
Between your age complaining and green eyes, I no longer feel bad about my Superman review.
Fair. But those are important parts. The eyes are hugely important to the novels because without them, it makes the entire Snape and Harry relationship so much less than.
Harry's going to have blue eyes and Johnny's going to stop watching the show.
I'm not going to say what I would do if that happens based solely on the fact that it could be held against me later on. So we'll leave that as it is.
Well, by the way, how about this? This is the longest Harry Potter discussion we have ever done in any incarnation of our show. That's a fact.
Yes, it is, because you finally watched them. All right. We'll be talking about this a lot over the hopefully next several years.
Yeah, that's a series I'd like to review episode after episode. Much like the way we do for House of the Dragon.
I am all for that. That's for darn sure. Oh boy. All right, so let's take off our fandom I believe I said let's take off our wizard cap and put on our Dustin, you can't make comments like that in chat when I'm starting an intro to a segment, okay? It's going to break me and make me laugh, and I can't have that while I'm trying to do a serious intro. All right, let's take off our wizard caps and put on our stormtrooper helmets and try not to walk into walls while wearing them. It's time for the Star Wars segment. For this week's multiple choice question, we're going to turn it over to Randy.
So, getting ready for the show, thinking about it. So, here we go. What do you feel is the most exciting aspect of Star Wars? A, lightsaber duels. B, starfighter dogfights. Or C, other. Could be anything ranging from just some of the stuff we saw in Andor this season. What do you think, Johnny?
C, other. Leia in a bikini, Return of the Jedi. I'll answer further questions.
I can respect that. What about you, Sean?
I'm going to go C, no James Gunn.
I feel a Patreon video coming on about James Gunn hate.
And you know what's funny is I like Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the first two movies. C, storytelling. Always, right from the very beginning. Even Knights of the Old Republic, especially in Andor. As much as I love lightsaber duels and space combat, storytelling.
All right, so there you go. Answer that multiple choice question in the comments down below. And while you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and set notifications to all so you don't miss this and any other future videos here on the channel. All right, guys, it's Emmy nomination time, and the nominees are in, and Andor has fallen just outside of the top 5, falling one nomination short in the top 5. It falls behind Severance, The Penguin, The Studio, White Lotus, and The Last of Us are the 5 ahead of it in the rankings, and it's tied with something else. With 14 Emmy nominations. We'll run through the list really quickly. It is nominated for Outstanding Drama Series, Outstanding Production Design for a Narrative, Period, or Fantasy Program, 1 hour or more, specifically for, why is that up? For episode 8, Who Are You? Outstanding Cinematography for a Series for episode 3. Outstanding Fantasy Sci-Fi Costumes, also for episode 3. Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series for episode 8. Outstanding Picture Editing for a Drama Series, also episode 8. Outstanding Music Composition for a Series, Original Dramatic Score, also for specifically episode 8. Outstanding Original Music and Lyrics from episode 8, specifically We Are the Gore. Outstanding Guest Actor in a Drama Series, Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera from episode 5. Outstanding Character Voiceover Performance, Alan Tudyk as K2 from episode 11. And Outstanding Sound Editing for a Comedy or Drama Series, 1 hour for episode 8. Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Comedy or Drama, episode 8. Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or a Movie. And Outstanding Writing for a Drama Series for episode 9. It's not in the notes, but since it's in the same article, The Acolyte also picked up an Emmy nomination for Best Sound Editing for a Comedy or Drama Series for its episode 5 Night. And John Williams picked up an Outstanding Sound Editing for a Nonfiction or Reality Programming for just being John Williams. Music by John Williams, specifically the documentary, and the same Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Nonfiction program. So, big day for Star Wars and Star Wars related things as far as the Emmy goes, picking up a total of 17 total Emmy nominations. Are you happy? Are you excited? More specifically, what is the biggest snub, and why is it Genevieve O'Reilly?
The Academy, whatever you want to call it, can suck my non-presidential white ass. Yeah, like this is Star Wars falling in with the comic book genre, getting snubbed, and before people go Penguin, Penguin, Penguin. Penguin is an HBO show. HBO always gets favored with this stuff. Half the fucking nominations, if not more, come from HBO shows. The fact that Genevieve O'Reilly, Stellan Skarsgård, and Diego Luna did not get nominated is highway robbery. So I will not be surprised when, like, it should be a shoo-in that Andor wins Best Drama Series. But given where these people, are playing favorites and not looking at this with an unbiased set of glasses, and I can say I did, because I did shows for years with Johnny saying, I don't give a shit about Andor. I don't want this show. I don't need this show. And it won me over. It's embarrassing, and I won't be surprised if they only win a couple of the 14. Tony Gilroy said it best. If you look at what the public has said about the show, the performance from those 3, and he shouted out a couple others today, will live on in the history books for the rest of their lifetimes. And it is snubs, and I'm not shocked that something with the Star Wars title is getting snubbed again. It's all, other than the outstanding drama, it's all technical stuff, and Forrest Whitaker getting a guest actor thing. Like, it's embarrassing at this point, fellas.
Randy, what about you?
Yeah, I was definitely disappointed to learn that nobody from the main cast really got much of anything. I was just, it's just disheartening because there are so many good moments and they put their all into the series and such great writing. And I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Because if memory serves me correctly, Diego Luna did get nominated for season 1 of Andor. So it's not like he got worse. He got better because he got to build the character more. So I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm happy that that a lot of the technical stuff is getting recognized. That's usually Star Wars shtick anyway. But still, it feels like as a fan uh, who's just enjoyed the series, and the fact that these great actors are just kind of pushed to the side for other people because they put their heart and soul to their performances. It just sucks. Uh, like I said, I'm happy that Star Wars is getting the usual technical stuff that they always get, but it's really time to kind of also look at the performances of the main cast and the types of depths they had to go to for some of the character work they did, because it was far and away probably, if not the best show I've seen so far this year, that with that in terms of like drama related.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me like I I would have liked to have seen Stellan get a nod, for best actor, but I mean, looking at who actually was nominated, it was a tough nut to crack. I mean,
Well,
Sterling
he would
K.
have been
Brown.
supporting. He would have been supporting,
I
not
don't think
best.
he was put up for supporting. I think he was put up for lead
I would be shocked because he
because
wasn't in it
I
enough
think
for
he met
lead.
I think he met the thresholds for being lead. Now, I could be wrong about that. He could have been put up for supporting actor, which if he was, he should have been nominated. Definitely, White Lotus doesn't need 3, and Severance has 3 in nominations for supporting actor in a drama. But if he was up for lead actor, then I'm not entirely surprised he didn't get it. Like I said, Sterling K. Brown, Gary Oldman, Pedro Pascal, Adam Scott, and Noah Wiley. Uh, that's a tough, that's a tough nut to crack. Genevieve
Yeah, and what do
O'Reilly, I think
most of those people have
absolutely.
in common? Most of them are HBO driven. And again, I just
Yeah,
praise HBO,
but
but
I
it's
mean, I think that I've seen half of these, and I think they absolutely, I think were at least as good performances as Stellan. So that one's sort of apples to oranges to me.
the
Like
Genevieve O'Reilly one pisses me off.
Genevieve O'Reilly absolutely should have been nominated for lead actress. Like I understand. Like to me, Kathy Bates got the nomination because of the story. Like that's it. That's it. That's the only reason. Matlock sucked. I think it's a terrible series. I didn't. I watched the first episode and was like, this is trash. I'm not watching this. It's just your standard legal bull crap. But I think to me the biggest snub is Denise Goff not getting supporting actress. Um, I think her performance is one of the best, like to the point one of the I don't know, where you the TV line, which is to me one of the preeminent TV related news websites, has her listed in its biggest snubs from the Emmys, which I think is rightly deserved. I think her performance had a lot of nuance, a lot of ups and downs, and it was a phenomenal performance. I think she's the one that as far as categories go, I think supporting is the, I don't want to say easiest, but it's a much easier nut to crack as far as getting nominated goes, and I think she absolutely should be there. But yeah, I think Genevieve should have gotten best lead actress nom, and Denise Goff as supporting. Um, it's just not good. Um, yeah, but Dustin, I my guilty pleasure is like procedural TV shows. That's my guilty pleasure. I love watching them. I do. Um, Legal, medical, crime, all 3 genres. I check out pretty much everything that comes up every year in those 3 genres, and that one sucked. Not just because you're naming it Matlock, which in and of itself is a slap in the face to Andy Griffith. Um, it is just it sucked. It sucked. It's terrible. All right, I digress. Let's move onward to our final Star Wars topic of the evening. We've discussed both of these projects in depth over the last, I guess, several years at this point. We've talked a lot about Eclipse. We've talked a lot about the Knights of the Old Republic remake. And at this point, I think it's safe to say that we are more likely to see Star Wars Eclipse than the Knights of the Old Republic remake, going through all of the multitude of changes and chaos and calamity that it has gone through. What do you guys think on that one, Shawn?
Um, so I can't tell you who I heard this from, but I will say Johnny and I have interviewed this fella a few times. He hasn't done content on his own channel in quite some time, and there's nobody more accurate with Star Wars information than him. So I don't know if he's going to break more than this down the line. He specifically didn't say Knights of the Old Republic isn't going to happen, but he thinks there's just been so many setbacks that it could be a long time. And I was really pleased to hear that Eclipse is, going forward to an extent. It's very much the Star Wars version of Heavy Rain, basically. And there's other titles too that Quantic Dream did that are like that. I want that game. I want to be able to craft and direct my own Star Wars story.
Randy?
I'm not surprised. I knew Quantic Dream would eventually get their shit together and start and push forward. I knew the biggest hurdle for them obviously is going to be combat. They're always, a lot of their games have QTEs in them, quick time events, more so than anything else when it comes to any type of action or any decision making, whether it's Indigo Prophecy, Heavy Rain, Detroit Become Human, like that those games are heavily story driven, and it's more or less the choices you make. And that's something we've all wanted in a Star Wars game, is the ability to control the narrative for how we proceed. I mean, granted, you can do that in an MMO as well, but this is going to take it to another level just because of the care that Quantic Dream tends to put into the stories of their games. They're very, very top notch, and I've always enjoyed playing through the games and making different decisions. So I'm really glad to hear that they're finally getting through the stuff that they need to get through so they can actually put something out. As far as KOTOR goes, I knew it was going to be a while. It just seemed like there's so many different hangups that they've been going through that it felt like until they get all the red tape done, everybody's finally set on what they want to do, that it's going to be a good probably 4 or 5 years before we even see anything in regards to this. And as long as it's done well, I'm willing to wait.
Yeah, I mean, more and more it has looked less and less likely that we were going to see the Knights of the Old Republic remake. And everything Shawn said about Eclipse is the way I feel. Those are the types of games that I get the most play out of because they are so replayable, which is a huge factor. At this point in my gaming experience, I like games that have immense amounts of replayability, which is why I am neck deep in Baldur's Gate right now, because it is such an infinitely replayable game. I mean, I have like 8 different characters on the go right now in Baldur's Gate, and none of them are telling the same story. So it's hugely, and that's with making a lot of the same choices between them, and it's still vastly different stories. So like it's huge. I mean, having that ability to play a game, for the 10th or 15th time. I've been playing a multiplayer game with some of my friends in Baldur's Gate, and they are, they're vets, like hardcore. They've been playing the game since launch, vets, and they have, dozens of playthroughs, and we found something new we could do that they'd never experienced before. Almost 2 years later. And that's saying something, when you're still finding new things that are relevant to the story years later, is huge to replayability. And that's something I think Eclipse will have that obviously KOTOR won't quite have. KOTOR does have its replayability. You do have a lot of choices you can make within that, but they are finite. There are, it's still linear. which is fine. It's good for its time. It was, unique and very different than anything we had at that point. But I am not at all surprises. I'm not at all surprised by it at all. So we'll just have to wait and see, whether or not we get any official announcements forthcoming, or any confirmations or things like that. Obviously, we'll keep talking about them here on the channel, because if there's one thing you've come to learn about us, KOTOR is a huge part of our Star Wars experience, especially for myself and Shawn. Shawn has been on the channel doing a KOTOR playthrough, which hasn't been back to in a few weeks, but life's like that, especially in the summer. But I'm sure he'll be getting back to that here soon. It's just, it's a huge part of our Star Wars experience, and it's a huge part of our Star Wars content, and has been, for as long as Shawn and I have been doing this, for the last 10 years and 1 month, roughly. So we will definitely continue talking about this until we get official confirmation of that, or it comes out, whichever happens first. So let us take off our Stormtrooper helmets, and thankfully no one walked over a cliff. And let's move forth to our final segment. It's the wrestling segment. It's time to enter the squared circle. So put on your favorite Lucha Libre mask. And it's time to get down to the business of the ring. Now, if you've watched the big weekend...
If I may...
Please.
I want to pose the question to the two of you here, because Jade asked me this question earlier once I laid out the scenario for her, and my honest answer was, I don't have a fucking clue. So essentially, Seth Rollins appeared to get hurt on Saturday night's main event. The match definitely ended abruptly. Triple H said he was injured. A bunch of people backstage said he was injured. Here's where it gets interesting. Usually, specifically with wrestling, if there's one thing I followed in wrestling in my return to paying attention in the last 4 years or so, is it's not hard to figure out who knows something and who's full of shit. And usually the people that know something are all on one side. Rarely are they against one another. Until right now. So, Fightful and Mike Johnson from PW Insider are regarded as two of the most, and I don't mean this in like a bad way, but like know-it-all insiders that there are. And they reported the injury is legit. But then if you watch Post Wrestling, who John Pollock's an actual journalist and does a good job over there, and I like tuning into their reviews of stuff, at least, because I know I'm going to get a unbiased viewpoint of whatever I'm watching, whether it's WWE or AEW. I watch their reviews on both because I can't afford to buy AEW pay-per-views, so they usually do a good job of breaking them down. He said, now keep in mind, he didn't say this until after it happened, but he said that he was told by a source within WWE on the Thursday, look out for a Seth Rollins injury angle on Saturday, specifically the knee. So you have Fightful and PW Insider on one side and Post Wrestling on the other side. John Pollock says he's confident it's a work. Fightful's confident that it's not, and PW Insider and Mike Johnson went as far to say anyone insinuating that it is a work is just being incredibly insulting to Seth and what's going on. I haven't a fucking clue who to believe on this one, because normally these parties are 99.9% of the time all on the same page. So let me throw it over to you two.
I haven't heard the Post Wrestling comments or that. So, I mean, if you could send me a link so I can check that out, that'd be great. But I think that is a situation of incomplete context. I think that it falls... there was a lot of speculation that he was hurt going into Saturday, that the angle was an angle to write off the injury that was pre-existing Saturday, so that he didn't... So there's some that are saying he didn't actually get hurt Saturday night. Saturday night was an angle to explain away an otherwise pre-occurring injury. I think that's what they were getting at. I don't know without seeing it or without hearing it or reading it, so I can't say with 100% certainty that that is the case. But I think that is a case of incomplete context, that he was injured going into Saturday night, and the angle was the explanation for that. Because I have heard that from a lot of places as well, and a lot of people as well, that he was, it's where the injury occurred that is up for debate. Some people say he was hurt going in. Some people say he was hurt in the moment. I thought he got hurt in the moment. I thought when he did the spot, it looked like the knee buckled. Now, that could happen with a pre-existing injury as well. I know what it's like. I don't have the greatest of knees. I know there are times I'll take a step and it'll look like that. It'll look like I'm, getting injured in the moment, but it's, pre-existing. I know that is definitely a possibility. So I can't say for certain whether it was a pre-existing injury or an injury in the moment. All I know is that Seth Rollins is hurt. That's all I know. That's all I'm willing to say with 100% certainty.
So I can tell you this, and I'll link you to it. John Pollock does not think he's hurt. He thinks the whole thing's an angle. And I don't know why it would be for this, because you and I and Randy have all been talking about this specific angle playing out at SummerSlam for a month now. Johnny was the first one to bring it up, actually, is to make Seth Rollins cash in seem more unpredictable when he cashes in on Punk after Punk beats Gunther. And I just sort of thought to myself, and I like John Pollock a lot. I really respect what they do. But I just kind of thought to myself, and again, it's not him saying he said this. He's saying a source within the company that he trusts adamantly is saying this. I just don't see how that makes it any more unpredictable. If anything, you should be looking out for it more now.
So,
are you going to be surprised if Seth I know you want to get in here, Randy, but if Seth cashes in on Punk in a couple of weeks, Johnny, are you going to be surprised? And did that mean Seth and Triple H and others involved in this angle work the whole locker room? Because that's usually not a good thing to do.
No. I think that if he does show up at SummerSlam and cash in on Punk after beating Gunther, I don't necessarily think that means it was a work. I think that hopefully it means that the injury wasn't as bad as, previously thought. I think there were lots of people, when he showed up on Sunday night to Evolution, which he was also in attendance for, he was on crutches and with a heavily restricted movement on his knee, like with I don't know if it was a brace or an air cast, or I haven't actually seen, which I'll say surprises me about the fan base. We're much more respectful about not taking photos of Seth entering the building, which shocks the hell out of me that people are actually making comments about that he showed up on crutches and in, some people said a brace, some people said an air cast, or just heavily bent. Like, there's differing thoughts on what it actually was, but that his knee was, I don't want to say locked, but not fully movable, which I think if it's not actually injured is more, potentially worse than not. I think you're more likely to accidentally injure yourself pretending to be injured than you are not. So I don't know. I hopefully it just means that, he went in, according to what they've said, and this is again directly from Triple H, he was going to Alabama to see the doctor there yesterday. There are no reports about results of that yet, which is not surprising. But we know he was supposed to be going in for tests yesterday. Hopefully that would just mean that it's not as bad as previously thought. It was just a bad landing or a tweak, or it wasn't as injured as thought, and just a couple weeks rest is just all he needed to do. Hopefully that would be what that means, not that they work, because like you said, it's one thing to work the audience, it's another thing to work the boys, and pull it over the audience eyes, great. Like if Seth walking into the building on crutches and limping and not moving, but then once he gets in safely, like into the locker room proper, if he's just walking around palling it up and having fun with the guys, great. You pulled one over on the fans, and that's hard to do in this era. That's for sure. So if you achieve that, then I'll actually give Triple H all the kudos in the world and say, maybe you are better at this than you pretend to be, because you pulled one over on the fans in the social media era, and that is damn near impossible.
So from usually like every day, I'll since I'm at work, I'll pop on like What Culture Wrestling News, and they did talk about what John Pollock said. They did talk about what Sean Ross Sapp said, talking about how both sides definitely don't seem to corroborate what each other are saying. From what I understand, Sean Ross Sapp has talked about how even some people in the back were worried about Seth, because that, at least from what he's heard. So it's strange, because you have on one side, if it's a work, it was done really well considering how both LA Knight and Seth reacted in that match, because that's some damn fine acting. I mean, just for that. But because you could see how dejected LA Knight was when he left the ring, because it's like, I didn't want to win like that. Even though we all know he wasn't going to go, he wasn't supposed to go over. Seth was probably going to win that match. But then you have the idea of if they say let's say they put a number out there saying like 3 months or 4 months or something like that, where he's going to be on the shelf. And then, they pull the swerve and he shows up at SummerSlam and cashes in. I mean, that's, then, what John Pollock said was right. But also you got to think about how Heyman talked about it on Raw, where he's like, Seth has until June of next year to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase, which is also kind of trying to, I would say, more of a tactic to deflect, in the sense of, yes, he's keeping the briefcase and he has till June. So that kind of throws out there another kind of potential false breadcrumb of trying to swerve everybody that it could be a work. So it seems like people are involved and it's either legit or it's a work, but there's so much conflicting hearsay out there that I really don't know. I mean, if it's a work, you fooled the locker room on top of it. Again, like Johnny said, that's not a good thing if you work the locker room on top of the fans. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we'll see when they release the test results, and if they confirm if it's legit or still a work. Hopefully Seth is fine. Hopefully this really truly is a work, and that he's not injured, because when you think about it, considering the track record of injuries they've had lately, they can't really afford to lose him. And it makes the return of Roman Reigns on Monday night all that much more, impactful, because if Seth is legit hurt, maybe Roman wasn't due back this soon. Maybe it was going to be at SummerSlam, or maybe after SummerSlam. Maybe they were like, we need you back now. I heard it was
supposed to be Roman and Seth at SummerSlam, which is what makes me kind of believe Seth might be hurt. But then the other part of me is, we've been predicting for a month now that Seth could cash in on Punk after we presume Punk will beat Gunther. It's like, it's almost like, until I see Rollins not cash in on Punk, and which I hope doesn't happen, because I think Punk deserves a few months reign. I'm not sure what to believe at this point. Usually I'm one way or the other. Like, I guess if you held a gun to my head and I said I had to guess correctly, I think I'd still say I expect Seth to cash in on Punk at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, until we hear differently, I think that's my assumption as well. Now, of course, obviously, it's pro wrestling, so it could go an entirely different direction altogether. So we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, it's only a couple weeks away, which is in and of itself, I think, ridiculous. So we'll just, we've got a couple weeks now. We'll see. Until we hear something and see something, I guess, it will always sort of be questioning it and speculating and wondering, and, when, where, how, and all of that. Until we hear it confirmed, then we'll have those questions, but I think one way or the other, here in a couple weeks we'll know for certain what exactly is going on, because that's one thing they don't exactly shy away from. If he does have to go in for surgery, we'll see it. We'll see photos, we'll see images, we'll see video. So it's not exactly something that's typically hidden. They have done a better job of that, which I think is smart, but it's not something I think that would be quiet. I think we'd hear about it in some form or other. Probably him posting photos of it online, or Becky or someone else posting photos of it online. We'll have to wait and see. All right, that's going to do it for that one. Let's move on to our final topic of wrestling, and I guess our final topic of the evening. Saturday afternoon was All In Texas, and boy, oh boy, what a barn burner. Randy, in 5 minutes, without going too deep into the spoiler weeds, All In Texas, what do you think?
It was easily one of the better pay-per-views AEW's put on. And the thing is, that's something they're usually really good about, is putting on solid shows. I wasn't expecting 5+ hours, but I'm not going to complain because I really enjoyed all the matches. We got some good surprise returns. We also got a kind of a feel-good moment right after a downer moment. So it's hard to not go into spoilery territory, since I know we're going to be kind of doing a full review for Patreon. But I will say, out of the night, my three main matches obviously are going to be the easiest one. The third one is the hard one. Obviously, Hangman and Moxley, and obviously Omega and Okada. But that third one, it keeps going back and forth because we got a great match with Tony Storm and Mercedes, but also the tag match between the Bucks and Swerve and Ospreay was great. So that's why I flip-flop between those two, because all the matches were great. The runtime, it's funny. The first 3 matches alone had more wrestling in it than most WWE pay-per-views do nowadays, which is crazy. But the flow was well. I was surprised with kind of the match they led off with, but it didn't disappoint. Ultimately, it was just my eyes were glued, man. I could not tear my eyes away from the screen because there was just so much going on, and it was a lot of good wrestling. Wrestling fans ate well on Saturday. Whether you watched NXT, AEW, WWE, if you watched all of it, because my friend had a TV down below his other one that had the NXT pay-per-view going as well. Wrestling fans ate well on Saturday, no doubt.
I think they ate well Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, not so much. No, seriously though, I think for me it comes down to exactly what you said. It was great. I personally am not surprised by the length, because that's about what I expected, if I'm being honest, going into it. If you'd have asked me going into it what will happen first, the end of Saturday night's main event or the end of All In, I would have predicted the end of All In would be later. Because I think the earlier start time helped. It didn't feel as long. I wasn't as exhausted at the end of the main event as I would be a normal pay-per-view, because it wasn't 12:30, it wasn't 1:00. So yes, it was longer by length by about an hour than any other AEW pay-per-view. It didn't feel like it, because it started at 3:00 and went until 10 or almost 10, that it felt much shorter than it actually was, which I think was smart. Now, do I think that should be sort of the idea going forward if they're going to maintain that length? I don't necessarily know. I mean, an earlier start time I think would be smart if you're still going to have 4 to 5 hour pay-per-views, just so that you're not ending after midnight, so that it is easier to enjoy them as a fan, especially as someone who's thinking about going in September. I would like to get home before 2:00 in the morning. If I do go, would be nice. But yeah, top 3, I think for me, that's pretty simple. It's the 2 matches featured on the poster here. If you picked Okada Omega, that's fine. but it's like their fourth or fifth best match together. So, to me, when you're trying to live up to the legacy left by their previous matches, they were never going to achieve that. Because they're older, they're Kenny's coming off of a life-threatening injury. It's not going to be the same, and it wasn't, and that's fine. But it wasn't as good as others, so I don't think I can say that, especially not when you have so many other great matches and moments on the card. Like you said, the tag match I thought was great. There's really not a match on the card that I can point to and be like, oh, that was not fun. I did not enjoy that. Other than, maybe the gauntlet matches weren't as enjoyable as I would have liked, mostly because there wasn't really any surprises this time around. It was all pretty straightforward. I was hoping for, a debut or return or shock that we didn't quite get as much as I would have liked in those matches. But, they served their purpose. They were fun, they were enjoyable, but they weren't great. So I guess for me, the third one would probably, I guess, have to be the tag match with the Bucks and Osprey and Swerve. But yeah, no, it was all around. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot more than, not necessarily than I thought it would. I'll still say this again. I said this. I can't remember if it was on Patreon or here on the main show. If you're going to call it Texas Death, do a fucking Texas Death match. A Texas Death match does not end in submission. It just doesn't. Like, it's... I hate that. If you're going to call it a Texas Death Match, have a Texas Death Match. A Texas Death Match is very simple. You pin your opponent, they have to answer the 10 count. If they can't answer the 10 count, it's not a Texas Death Match. You did that. You had the 10 count, but you didn't have the pinfall first. Like, I guess pin or submission, I guess technically, you need a fall and then the 10 count. That's a Texas Death Match. What you had was not that, and like, if you want to call it that, students of the game, 2 words, 5 letters, I quit. Could have done the same match there. It would have been just as good. You would have had Moxley quitting at the end.
So this is the part where I get to chime in, because it's the only match I've seen in its entirety. Not that I suggest anybody seeing AEW pay-per-views the way I did. Not advised.
Yar.
Unless you can, afford a ton of money. I tuned in because I desperately wanted to see Jon Moxley lose. And I'm just going to be blunt. I'm not an AEW guy anymore. Most of the guys that I liked over there are no longer there. Still have a few. I didn't like the match. I thought it was way over the top. And to be honest, until Johnny just explained the rules of a Texas Death Match, I could not have told you what the rules were. But what I do know from watching AEW highlights and Jon Moxley for the last, 2 years now? Maybe even before that. Is this guy incapable of putting on a real wrestling match anymore? Like, I get it that it was more than that, but I can't tell you the last time Jon Moxley had a good wrestling match. I just can't. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, he's not capable of one anymore. I didn't like it. I liked that Hangman won, which might surprise people considering I'm a Punk fan, but I think I said on this channel, I think it might have been on Patreon though, that I wanted Hangman to win. That was the right call. And I guess in a way, Johnny got what he predicted many months ago, is Darby Allin did show up. He's just not the one that won the match. I don't know. Like, I seen the finish, I seen the whole match, but the finish itself, I don't know. It's just not for me. It's too over the top, and you guys are talking about lengths. Like, I'm glad that's the perfect length for you. You guys are more diehard than me. I'm closer to a casual fan with, I'm a diehard fan of a few guys rather than the sport in general. But that, you're never going to hook anybody, or very many people anyways, that are casual fans when you expect them to sit that long through a pay-per-view. And that's okay if it's for the diehards. I mean, they got their TV money, right? So, that's way too long for me. God bless all you if you're able to sit through that. Not for me. And I still think like we talked about on Patreon, the sweet spot's somewhere in the middle. WWE doesn't do enough wrestling on their pay-per-views or whatever you want to call them, and AEW does way too much. I think you need something more in the middle. But other than that, if everyone enjoyed it, and I'm happy for you, I think the whole Death Riders thing has been shit for a long time, and it ended in a shit way, and it is what it is. And also, obviously, thoughts are out for Adam Cole, who obviously just can't buy a break. The poor guy.
Oh, he cannot. That was rough. I'll say that. Watching that and feeling the emotion of that was rough. I think personally, I understand, like from a personal perspective, I understand having that moment there and doing that. But for God's sakes, do it on Dynamite. Don't do it in the middle of a pay-per-view, because no matter what you do next, people are not going to be into it. And
Yeah, that definitely took the wind out of everybody's
yeah,
sails. You could tell with the next match, with that fatal 4-way, that it really did affect the crowd. And from what I've read, it sounds like he was ready to out and out retire right then and there,
yep.
and he just needed a chance to kind of cool down a bit. And he decided against it, but it sounds like it's still not off the cards potentially, and that would be really horrible, a horrible way to go out. Just because he's such a positive influence in wrestling,
Really.
and he's such a good human being, that hopefully he recovers relatively quickly and is fully healed, so that we can at least see him perform again, because that's definitely a downer. But at least what happened afterwards kind of got the crowd back into it with that feel good moment, for sure, for Dustin.
It was rough. Like Adam Cole is genuinely an amazing human being, a nice human being. Like, I actually have a story about that if you'll indulge me a moment. It was the first Ring of Honor show at the Mattamy Athletic Center, formerly known as the Maple Leaf Gardens. I went with my brother, my dad, and a close friend.
From now on, you just refer to it as Maple Leaf Gardens. Damn it!
I was being specific for people who didn't know the new name, the old name, because the new name
And
still
if you
featured.
didn't know, don't watch this show.
Well, to people who Mattamy Athletic, it is a thing. Like, it is in wrestling. It's kind of the home of.
Is it still partially a Loblaws? Because I walked through it as a Loblaws, and that was interesting.
It was when I was there, but the last time I went was 2018, maybe. The Ring of Honor show they did there that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks were at. The last War of the Worlds tour in Toronto, I think.
Wait, hang on. Did we walk through it together by chance?
No, I've never been there with you.
Okay, I wasn't sure, because it was probably around the same time that I went anyway. I remember standing. You could stand basically right at where center ice was and sit down the friggin' food.
Yeah, I never actually went into the Loblaws section, just walked around it, because it was, both times I went was for Ring of Honor shows, so it was later at night. But it was the first Ring of Honor show at the Maple Leaf Garden, formerly Maple Leaf Garden, and we were doing the autograph stuff beforehand. And if you don't know how Ring of Honor used to do his autographs, you could buy a bundle and get autographs from everybody, or you could buy individuals. I bought the bundle. I was going to meet everybody, and that night it was Adam Cole, Kevin Steen, Paul London, Brian Kendrick, Roderick Strong. It was a host of people that I was excited to meet, but there was one person there that I and Shawn have both known for 20 years. He's someone we actually went to school with, who went into wrestling, and the story didn't turn out great. But if you know the history of Ring of Honor, Michael Elgin was his name. He's someone we went to school with, and he was in the autograph line, and he was right next to Adam Cole. And I started the line before him, and then I skipped him. I just straight up walked right. Like, I said hi. I spoke to him for a few minutes because, like I said, he's someone I've known for 20 years. And, we had a little chat. But I didn't get his autograph. I didn't get a picture. Nothing. And just moved forward to Adam Cole. And Cole kind of looked at me like, you paid for an autograph for him and you didn't get it. Why not? And I said something smart, like, I don't need to get an autograph. He's, who cares? And Cole was genuinely offended that I said that. Like, the look on his face was like, it was genuine shock. And like, you have to get an autograph and a photo. And And Elgin starts snickering and chuckling, and he kind of taps Cole, and he's like, "It's all right. I went to school with him. I've known him for 20 years, 15 years at this point. I've known him since I was a short, fat kid." And Cole laughed, and I got the autograph and the picture with him, and it just the way he's such a nice human being that he was genuinely offended that I skipped someone in the autograph line to get to him. And that's something I'll take away from Adam Cole. Just as a genuine human being, I loved him. He's a great dude. I had a few opportunities after that to speak to him at different Toronto shows. Even before that, I had a few opportunities to speak to him, but never like that. It was just, he's the general sort of, I love your work. You're great. Just the general fanboy stuff. But that one was a genuine interaction that I love, and it's a story I'll always remember. So
this feels like the appropriate time to remind people, if you're going down a hill on a toboggan, have a look before you go down.
I mean, it was covered in snow, so he wasn't the first one to go down the hill that day either. But I digress. If you went to school with us, you understand that story. If you didn't, well, I guess you'll never understand that story. All right, guys, that is going to do it for today's show. You can join us every Tuesday night for the Mask of Fear, sometime between 8 and 9 p.m., depending on the week at hand. You can catch us Tuesday night for the Mask of Fear live. And if you haven't yet, and you want to, and have the extra money, you can head over to patreon.com/themaskofear and join one of those 5 tiers for all of the exclusive content available over on there. Of course, once again, thanks to our sponsors, Ryan of Kaulignation for NASCAR Needs here on Facebook, Jesse Storytime Spectacular for all of your general fandom related stuff, and Jason at Backtrack Cinema if you love retro horror. He's your guy. And to all of our other patrons at patreon.com, we thank you, we love you, we appreciate you. Without you, there is no us. Randy, what do you want to plug?
Well, you can find me over on X at Giggity Giles. Currently doing some research on some Twitch stuff so I can try to start streaming from the PS5. It's going to be pretty minimal at first, but it'll be just kind of chill, relaxed games, nothing too crazy. Obviously, I will keep everybody updated on that. And hopefully here soon we'll be making some more Patreon videos. I know we're going to be doing the all-in review. And anybody who's been listening, watching, and liking them, I definitely appreciate it, especially with all the work Shawn puts into make sure they get out there so you guys can enjoy.
Shawn?
I will not be doing any streaming this week. I'm going to take the rest of this week off because it's been 3 weeks of hell, and off to an extent. I have work to do on another channel, and hopefully nothing too important pops up to where I need to do a standalone video on this channel for the rest of the week. But we'll get back into the swing of things starting next week, and I'm definitely going to continue some Knights of the Old Republic streams, and we're better positioned to have my laptop plugged in while doing it now, so they should be able to go for a couple hours at a time rather than just 40 minutes. And just a big thank you for those of you that stick it out all show long. For those of you that just come in for certain segments. Without the audience, there's no show. Obviously, we appreciate the Patreon support, and just clicking the thumbs up button helps a ton. And, hopefully we have a lot more for you here in the near future.
Absolutely. And you can, of course, find me here, there, everywhere. Once in a blue moon, you'll find me over at twitch.tv/bros before pros. If I ever get into this alpha, I will be streaming Crosswinds, hopefully, as soon as I can get in there. Hopefully, I'll get an alpha key. If not, I don't know what I'll be streaming, but something in the not too distant future. All right. It is time for us to say so long, farewell, Vita saying good night. John, take us home.
No, you can take us home, or else I'm just going to take another shot at James Gunn.
Okay. Well, please don't do that. All right, guys, it's time for us to take off our mask of fear and put about our everyday masks. We'll see you next week. So long, and good night.